This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Ice Cube's Big 3 is the surprise hit of the summer. This Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern on CBS with playoff elimination on the line. The most physical, fiercest, and competitive basketball in the world. Miami's Michael Beasley and Lance Stevenson must win to make the playoffs. And breakout star Dwight Howard of the LA Riot will battle Gary Payton's Boston squad in a do-or-die match for both teams. 6 teams are alive for 4 spots and all must win. There's no crying in the Big 3. And the no-holds-barred action starts Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Presented by iHeart.
Yeah, Rosey.
A wounded Scarlet Knight is a dangerous Scarlet Knight. Circle that date on your calendar.
I got it down.
Is it September 26th? Gophers and Scarlet Knights. That's a feature match.
What else is he going to say?
You know what I've heard?
What?
I've heard there's so much interest in that game, they're going to move it to U.S. Bank Stadium. There's that much interest in that game. Scarlet Knights, Gophers.
Yeah, Rutgers.
September 26th. Be there. Aloha. So what's going to happen to the Jim Marshall thing? They just made a Jim Marshall Day today. Did they do a little celebration over there?
Yeah. They had, I think, a video presentation.
Okay.
As I mentioned, his widow, Sue, is here, and brother-in-law, et cetera, some family members. I just had a picture taken. Sue took one with Jim's granddaughter. So a lot of family members are here. I think KOC is going to acknowledge and do some things as well. I mean, it's not, a big standardized practice here.
Right.
It's actually leading up to, and we'll have Scott Studwell in here less than a half hour from now to talk about more, but Legends Weekend is always a big deal, and that's, under normal circumstances, they got, like 40 players that come back, and that's the third game of the season. I think it's at the Bengals game, I believe. So Thursday night, we're doing a big thing at U.S. Bank that a lot of players will be at. I don't think that's open to the public, but they're having a ceremony there. I'm going to host it at U.S. Bank on that Thursday night, and then Sunday will be the big recognition day. I think they're wearing the number 70 decal on their helmets this year, and they'll be acknowledging Jim in the first home game in particular when they play the Atlanta Falcons. But the big one will be when most of his ex-teammates and other players who obviously knew Jim and admired him will be here for Legends Weekend.
He'll eventually get in the hall, right? Through that seniors thing?
Well,
don't
it's already,
they do a seniors?
They've been doing it.
And they've been doing it, and he's still.
No, I don't understand it. I mean, I know people look at different optics and say, well, but the man played in 270 straight football games.
And he wasn't just taking up space. He was really good.
Playing, he started all the time.
He's part of the Purple People Eaters. I am miffed by it, but maybe we're a bit biased, but
we had a chance to have dinner. Give me the ding here with Alan Page recently.
Ding.
And by the way, happy birthday to Alan, who turned 80 today.
80 today?
Yeah. So congrats to Alan. But he was, he doesn't always. He
doesn't look a day over 80.
Yeah, listen.
Well, because he's not. He's 80.
He's 80. But when you get him going about telling stories, it's amazing, especially when it comes to Jim Marshall. And he said there was a goal line stand against the Rams, and he said that he weighed like 220 pounds as a defensive tackle.
That's a cornerback nowadays.
And Jim probably was under that.
Yeah.
And he said on this particular play, I think Roman Gabriel handed the ball off to Les Josephson or whomever was the backfield for the Rams. Jim not only got the tackle, but he pushed the guard and the tackle back 5 yards into the huddle, basically, and Allen kind of cleaned up and got the tackle. He said it was one of the most remarkable plays he'd ever seen. And he, like you said, he weighed the equivalent of a defensive back today. Yeah. And it's, with Allen, it was one of the main reasons why he and Bud didn't see eye to eye, because Allen kept running and losing weight. And Bud wanted him to play at, 250, 255, whatever, and Allen wanted no part of that anymore. He was looking after his own health. So eventually he left and went to the Bears and had some productive couple of years with the Chicago Bears. But, obviously Alan's back in town. He's doing, still very involved after losing his wife, Diane, and he continued on the legacy of the Page Foundation. But he and Jim are very close. Alan's got that left pinky that goes like perpendicular.
Yeah.
And he told me the story that he did it on the field one day and in a game, and Marshall said, "Let me fix that for you." On the field, he took that finger and went. And he never got it surgically repaired. It still looks exactly unlike any pinky you've probably ever seen in your life. And he's carried on his entire life like that. And his daughter's written books about it, but it literally goes at a 45-degree angle. But it's
and Jim, of course, the most infamous play.
Yeah.
And you laugh about it now, but he scooped up the fumble and went the wrong way
right.
with it.
Yeah, and that was his. Unfortunately, for many years, it followed him everywhere.
Yeah.
And, it was hard. It's embarrassing. Look, it happened. And he recovered, I think more fumbles than anyone in Viking history. So, that wasn't unusual to see him recovering fumbles, but that particular one against the San Francisco 49ers ended up being, that was a tough one, to say the least.
We were looking at, Tenby and I were looking at some, just that list stuff that, lazy radio, and there's nobody lazier than me. They were naming top 10 players at all the offensive and defensive
I heard you guys
positions.
talking about that.
And defensively, there's not a Viking in the group. And then offensively, there were two. There were, or was it three? No, it was just two, right?
Hawkinson, Jefferson.
And that was it. So just Hawkinson and Jefferson. And,
we can't argue with that.
And again, it doesn't really, it doesn't mean it. It doesn't mean if we don't have any players in the top 10, we can't be any good because, the sum of the parts, the whole of the whatever it's called. But defensively, I guess when it's hard to crack the top 10 at any one single. If you're looking about interior defensive linemen, there's a lot of them, and there's some that are just so good. So it doesn't mean that you don't have good players at those positions, but what it does mean is that we're not getting any respect. And
I think that if Darrisaw had played last year the whole season, I think Christian Darrisaw belongs in that group. And you have to start all over again. If you're a writer and you see, Darrisaw, I know the name, but he didn't play last year. He got hurt in the Rams game, whatever, and missed most of the season. He's not going to make the list. O'Neill's obviously, highly considered, and the new guys they got from the Colts, you kind of have to prove it all over again. But not surprising because it's really how you play as a unit. But I think Darrisaw in particular belongs in that top 10. But you got to do it all over again. You got to start this year with that.
I believe it was yesterday, or maybe all my troubles seem so far away, and now it looks like they're here to stay. No, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, where the NFL said players can't use smelling salts anymore. Right. That story got tweaked a little bit today. NFL players can still, this is a headline from Associated Press, NFL players can still use smelling salts as long as not provided by teams. The NFLPA sent a memo to players yesterday saying that the ban that the league informed teams about on Tuesday only prohibits team employees from distributing smelling salts and any other ammonia inhalant during pregame activities, games, and halftimes on the sideline or locker rooms. The memo, which was obtained by the Associated Press, says the NFLPA is aware of the memo issued by the league regarding the use of smelling salts and ammonia capsules. We were not notified of this club policy change before the memo was sent out. To clarify, this policy does not prohibit player use of the substances, but rather restricts clubs from providing or supplying them in any form. The NFL has confirmed this to it. Now, smelling salts and similar products have been a staple on NFL sidelines for years. Players believe that they can provide a sudden jolt of energy or alertness. However, the league cited a warning issued by the FDA in 2024 that there was no evidence citing the safety or efficacy of the products and that they have the potential to mask symptoms of a concussion. So I understand why the league wants out. The league is already, they've already haven't they had a large monetary settlement because of CTE and, I think, people were getting concussions and the severity of it really wasn't known, I guess. And so you would use a smelling salt to wake you up a little bit. Here.
A trainer would do it.
Yeah, a trainer would do it. And the league doesn't want any, the teams don't want any part of it. I understand that. And as a player, Again, you want to play, you want to get back in the game, but I wonder how many even use it anymore anyway.
First of all, obviously it's easy for any player to get the equivalent of smelling salts, and a lot of them use it not so much coming off of an injury on the field. They're trying to get your senses knocked out of you. But a lot of times it's just to juice you up a little bit, artificially. It doesn't last. It's not going to last for 4 quarters.
Right.
But I think that, I don't know if you take a poll of how many Vikings would be using smelling salts in the course of a game. I think it still would be a small amount. But and I understand the leagues. They're being overly protective of everything right now.
Well, especially because there could be, potential lawsuits.
Sure, they have to protect themselves.
They do smelling salts on the Power Trip Morning Show.
They do.
Before initials game. Being serious.
It's great.
Have you ever done that?
Those guys are so wacky over there.
That stuff's awful.
Well, they're edgy in the morning. They do things that others don't.
They're edgy.
I wish I could be like them. I really do. Hey, let's take a break.
Okay.
One more segment to go, and then Scott Studwell, former Viking linebacker, to join us, talk about Jimmy Marshall.
Right.
It's Jim Marshall Day today out here at training camp. TCO Performance Center continuing coverage of Vikings Training Camp 2025 right here on the Fan.
Ratings are in, and Ice Cube's Big 3 is the surprise hit of the summer. This Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern on CBS, with playoff elimination on the line, the stars will be flocking to Los Angeles to witness the most physical, fiercest, and competitive basketball in the world. Miami's Michael Beasley and Lance Stevenson must win over Houston to make the playoffs, reeling from last week's savage beating at the hands of Chicago's possessed Montrezl Harrell. Last time these teams met, Miami beat Houston, but they are a dangerous team having their manhood at stake. Then breakout star Dwight Howard of the LA Riot will battle Gary Payton's Boston squad in a do-or-die match for both teams. Will LA avenge their previous shocking loss to perennial basketball Boston rivals to survive? 6 teams are allowed for 4 spots, and all must win. Don't miss the Big 3, the 3-on-3 basketball league everyone is talking about. There's no crying in the Big 3, and the no-holds-barred action starts Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, followed by 2 games on Vice starting at 6:30 Eastern, presented by iHeart.
Here at TCO Performance Center. I know I asked Tenneby about it yesterday, but I don't know if I asked you, and maybe you did address it, and I just forgot, but it's worth addressing again. How much do you think the Vikings will miss Addison in the first 3 weeks? A suspension handed down by the National Football League. His quote, of course, was, I'm not going to fight it. I don't blame him. He wants to put it behind him. I think hopefully he's gotten the message. But, that's 3 games. Your number 2 receiver is a pretty talented kid.
Well, I think coaches are used to moving on, probably mostly because of injuries. I mean, the situation with Jordan is that the Vikings and KOC have known about this since last spring, not even before that. So.
That's like an injury that just happened last week.
Yeah,
right?
They've been preparing for it. They're not going to go, oh my God, we're going to be without Jordan Addison. He can play obviously in the preseason, but I'm sure we'll see him on Saturday. But Jalen Naylor has an opportunity. Some of the younger players have an opportunity to crack
Speedy,
that.
we call him.
Speedy, yeah. It sounds like Rondell Moore, our guy's going to be returning punts. That's sort of like his number 1 guy right now. But no, I don't think. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm looking at T.J. Hawkinson behind you here, and he's not participating at the moment. He won't play Saturday, but he's going to
ear infection. I heard
ear infection. That's what I have.
He was participating earlier.
Yeah, he's going to be fine.
I didn't get. I thought I'd get a smirk out of Tenneby with the ear infection.
Yeah, that's pretty good
because he loves that.
Yeah.
One.
So no, I don't think it's because of the fact they've had months and months and months to prepare for it. It's not like it's a surprise. I'm not suggesting they're not going to miss him because Addison's by all accounts is having a very good camp. We've seen him emerge as a really clutch receiver. So yeah, they're gonna miss him, but it's not like they're gonna oh my God, we can't beat the Bears or
right
anyone without the first 3 weeks. They got Atlanta here, the home opener. But no, I mean you're missing a top-notch receiver, but you gear your offense around the elements you do have, and then obviously first and foremost it's Justin Jefferson, and I'm looking for McCarthy to throw the ball a bit more out of the backfield, and what we've heard a lot of is the fact they're going to run the ball a lot more. So we'll see, but
try to run the ball.
But he'll be, I'm looking at Addison right now. He'll be back for games. He's going to be gone for 3 weeks. Well, he was gone for. Did he have an injury last year?
Yeah.
Missed a couple of weeks. Yeah. So players get hurt all the time, and that's just a fact of life.
Let me ask another question. McCarthy is quoted as saying, "I could run a little bit. Don't be surprised." Now he said even occasionally put his shoulder down. What do you I don't think they'll have a lot of designed runs for the kid, but it's nice to have some mobility at a quarterback and have that threat. But there's always, I don't know if you're like me, but anytime your favorite team's quarterback slips out of the pocket, starts, trudging downfield, you kind of want to cover your eyes because you're always expecting that huge hit before he takes the slide that can knock a guy out of a.
We'll see how adept he is at doing things. When you think of Patrick Mahomes when he runs, he's not a world-class sprinter, but he knows the angles. He knows how to get out of bounds. He knows how to use his body in a way where he's not going to absorb a big hit. Josh Allen, on the other hand, when he runs like a halfback. He's going to take some shots.
He's going to give some shots.
He's going to give some shots too. You're right. He's a big boy. We'll see where JJ. He's got his 10-0. He's got that hockey mentality, so he's probably not going to be afraid to take on some defensive backs a couple times. But you got to be smart, and I'm sure that'll be the message that KOC gives him time and time again. I hope you have some baseball background too, because we want you to slide a lot. If you take off, we don't want you taking on some linebacker or defensive back in the open field.
I saw that.
It's a good weapon to have, though.
Yeah. Speaking of Mahomes, I saw he's going to play. Yeah, he's going to start.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, I think it said.
I'm not surprised.
I think I saw I just glanced at the story. I should admit, working at the All Sports station, that I just skimmed it, but it said. That this really isn't new to Andy Reid, and I guess I don't pay as close attention to Chiefs preseason football as I once did. But, that it seems like more than I thought. I always thought no starters ever played in any of these anymore, but I'm beginning to find out. I don't know if that's changing now. They're going back to playing more, if it's always been that way, depending upon the team and depending upon the situation. But, you can't put them in a suit of armor. They're going to have to play, and so they do like to give them a fear. I think the fear becomes, if you don't play him at all and you're playing against teams at opening day that have users, they're going to be a little ahead of the game. And I'm not so sure they would be. But, all these sports teams, they leave no stone unturned, right? Any type of advantage or disadvantage that they think of, they'll do everything they can. So it's almost like, well, if everybody else is playing their starters, I guess we might as well play ours for a bit for some of the preseason.
Well, it's always a chess match between coaches and how they approach things. And, KOC's had this thing mapped out for months about how he's going to use his players, and in particular getting ready for the opener. And they're not, as we've talked about, they're not game planning for the Houston Texans on Saturday. They're game planning for Ben Johnson and the Bears on that Monday night game. That's all the coaching staff is working on right now. So, I think it's, sometimes you think, well, the starters really haven't played, and all of a sudden you go from zero, maybe playing for a series or two, to full out 4 quarters the first game of the year, and how are they going to handle that? And that's just the first game. So it's always something that you want those guys to be fresh, but you also want them to be sharp. And it depends on how you look at your team. And I think that's why they have these scrimmages. Next week, the Patriots thing, when they come here with your guy Vrabel, who's pretty feisty in his own right, that's going to be a lot more interesting, I think, than the game itself on next Saturday at noon. Sorry to say, but for going. But because, the starters will be out here, including Jordan Addison, against the Patriots during those 2 days. And, they protect the quarterbacks, but, you're still going to have some extracurricular stuff going on. These guys are sick and tired. They always hear the same line all the time. I'm sick and tired of, hitting my teammates all the time. So, I think, after Saturday, the Vikings will see the Patriots here next Wednesday and Thursday. And that in itself will be more like game preparation than the actual game next Saturday at US Bank.
Will you be part of the fan pregame show too?
Not the pregame show. I do a postgame.
You do a postgame show.
I do a postgame hit with Muss, just long enough until Mr. Lieber gets a hold of his guest or something. Yeah. So I usually fill it mostly at the regular season stuff.
What's it like to be involved in the Vikings? Because I don't know what that's like anymore. I used to be involved, but they let.
Would you like to be?
Oh, That's our program director.
No, I can make room for you.
Yeah.
Wow, there you
That's
go.
the executive producer of the Vikings Radio Network.
How about that?
Chad Abbott.
Well, here's your chance.
Now they've seen the error of their ways. So now they want to bring me back. Guess what? That ship has sailed.
Oh, no, really?
That ship has sailed.
Is there
I'm
any way
done
we
with you
can
guys.
talk you back into it?
Come on.
My feelings were hurt. I was devastated. The one time they
yanked you
kicked
up.
me up, they didn't even tell me. I'm waiting for them to call at 10:45. No call. I thought it was a noon game. And I said, well, maybe it was a 3:00 game. So there I am at 1:45 waiting for the call. No call.
Nothing.
Maybe it's a Sunday night game. So I'm waiting there at 5:45. No call. They finally tell me, oh, no, you're not on the show anymore.
Man, that's cruel. That's cold.
TV, you'll be there on Fox, right?
I'll be there on Fox, as we mentioned, 2 to 3.
Anything new? You guys have anything new planned? I mean, I know you do.
Well,
you do sink or swim. No.
Sinker. I think I called it that the first time.
What is it called?
Sink or sail.
So you guys do? You do a sink or sail?
I don't know. I have not talked to the producer. I'll be talking with him tomorrow.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to be, because it's going to be all centric about JJ and the backups and, that kind of stuff, the conversations. It's the usual suspects, but, it's our kind of dress rehearsals, too.
It'll be controversial, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure it will be. I mean, how long is JJ going to play? I mean, Lieber will weigh in on that, and Bursic, we got a good group. There's Mr. Studwell.
Yeah, well, let's break. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Stud's coming over. We're going to talk about Jim Marshall Day. We'll do
Sounds
that when
great.
we return. From one segment to go. TCO Performance Center, the new Winter Park. It's our continuing coverage of Training Camp 2025 for the Vikings right here on The Fan.
The reviews and ratings are in, and Ice Cube's Big 3 is the surprise hit of the summer. This Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern on CBS, with playoff elimination on the line, the stars will be flocking to Los Angeles to witness the most physical, fiercest, and competitive basketball in the world. Miami's Michael Beasley and Lance Stevenson must win over Houston to make the playoffs, reeling from last week's savage beating at the hands of Chicago's possessed Montrezl Harrell. Last time these teams met, Miami beat Houston, but they are a dangerous team having their manhood at stake. Then breakout star Dwight Howard of the LA Riot will battle Gary Payton's Boston squad in a do-or-die match for both teams. Will LA avenge their previous shocking loss to perennial basketball Boston rivals to survive? 6 teams are allowed for 4 spots, and all must win. Don't miss the Big 3, the 3-on-3 basketball league everyone is talking about. There's no crying in the Big 3, and the no-holds-barred action starts Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, followed by 2 games on Vice starting at 6:30 Eastern, presented by iHeart.
KFAN.
It's our continuing coverage of Training Camp 2025 for the Minnesota Vikings, the new Winter Park, TCO Performance Center, live from. I'm the common man, Dan Cole, along with Ted B. Mark Rose, and excited and delighted to be joined by former legendary Vikings linebacker Scott Studwell here on Jim Marshall Day. Scott, thanks for taking time to join us. How you been?
Well, my pleasure. I wouldn't have missed this for all the tea in China. Jim was such a special person, unbelievable teammate, phenomenal leader.
Yeah.
Just, the accolades go on and on and on. I'm completely flabbergasted that he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think we all are. Yeah.
When you play 19 seasons and you
Never miss a game,
and that in itself should be a gold star to get him in there. But
and played at a high level in those games too.
Yeah, so it's nice to come out here and pay tribute to Jim and his family.
Yeah, there's 30 members of Jim Marshall's family out here today, including his widow Susan, who's a tremendous woman and dealing with kind of a huge adjustment to say the least. And we've had the opportunity to spend some time with her. But Scott, as a player, You saw, I think your first year was 77 with the Vikings.
Yep.
So Jim was getting near the tail end of his career. But what struck you about his presence in that locker room, on the field, the meeting room every day, being on the defensive side of the ball with them early on in your career?
He was just he was an icon to start with, and it's I when I first got there, I didn't know Alan and Carl and Doug Sutherland and Jim, and just to be around those guys, and they were kind of at the tail end of their careers, but they could still play, number one. And Jim was just, he was the glue that really kept everybody together, not just the defense. He was the leader of the team. And anytime Bud Grant appoints somebody in that kind of role, and I didn't really know Bud from Adam at the time, but after you get to know Bud, for him to put that much on Jim's plate, to me it says awful lot about Jim.
When you look at the way the Purple People Eaters basically dominated back in those days, you had when your team got a nickname, your defense, Purple People Eaters, you were the Steel Curtain, you were Orange Crush, you were the Killer Bees, Steel Curtain, all that. You were that said something. That's how good they were, and that was a dominant defense. Certainly the Vikings had some terrific offensive players. Fran Tarkington, we could go on and on. They had great offensive linemen. Right. But I tell you what, that defense was really the calling card back then for the Purple.
Well, they had been together for so long, and the nucleus of that defense had been together for 10, 12, maybe even longer year, with Bobby and Paul Krause and Wally Hilgenberg and Jeff Seaman, and, other than the front four that was phenomenal in their own right. It was an honor for a young player to come in and learn from those guys and learn how to be a pro. And I forgot how to be a pro a few times, but
haven't we all?
But most of that was off the field. So, but it was just they knew what they wanted to do. They accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, other than winning the big game. And it was just the way they carried themselves, the way they conducted themselves. If you didn't go in and play up to their standards, you were gone.
One of my favorite images, Scott Studwell, is of the singular image of you helping carry Jim Marshall off the field in his final game. It's an iconic photograph, and I'm thinking carrying him off the field, he probably weighed, I think we were talking about earlier, 215 pounds maybe, he and Allen combined. How did he do it at that level when you look at the defensive linemen the Vikings have, 215 pounds, and the leverage and the speed and the ferocity that he played with?
Well, the offensive linemen back then weren't
they weren't
obviously
300
as big, and they were maybe 270, 275 at the most. But Jim could run like a deer. He was always able to run for a big guy. And if you ever looked at his hands, his hands were
claws.
But it was like a bucket on a skid steer or something.
He could play.
He could play. He had phenomenal instincts on and off the field, and he was just, I am just so fortunate to have played with him for 3 years and learned from him what I did and the takeaways. He's one of those special people that you don't they don't come along very often.
Our guest is Scott Studwell, legendary linebacker of the Minnesota Vikings here on Jim Marshall Day. We talked about, you just talked about how the players were different than just by size-wise. Now they try to bulk up. They want to get bigger. It's become a bigger, faster game. What other changes are there from the time that Marshall and the guys played from before? I mean, though there was a time really there were no indoor stadiums, played outdoors no matter what. I think, just look at the training center here, how much has changed with just that. And just the way they play the game and scheme for the game and all, they leave basically no stone unturned. Is there a major difference? And then the second part of the question would be, really at the end of the day, it's still blocking, tackling, throwing, catching, running, and passing, right?
Well, it's still about having a big heart and having a football heart and wanting to make the play within the scheme of whether it's offense or defense, and some guys won't test out well, some guys don't pass the eyeball test, but they're great football players, and that's all about, being a good football player doesn't necessarily mean you're a great athlete, but these guys out here they're big, they're strong, they're fast, they're intelligent, they're and it's the game has transformed to a much bigger, much faster, more athletic, and then not a lot of guys in my era could have played
right
for this football team, and I probably couldn't have played for this football team, but it's all relative. I mean, but it's all about the heart and the head, and those are the hardest things for you to measure.
Well, and you talk about being a football player, maybe not the best. You look at the players that go undrafted, like John Randall, Ivan Pace, these guys, especially in the case of Johnny Randall that goes to Hall of Fame, obviously there was something scouts and coaches and front offices were missing with these guys where they didn't get drafted. And so it's a lot of it's just like you say, you call it a football heart. I don't think that's an exaggeration. And you hear coaches talk about, well, he's a football player first. He's a football player.
Well, a lot of, and I'll take myself, for example, it's being in the right place at the right time. Was I disappointed that I was a 9th round pick? Well, yeah. But I went to the Minnesota Vikings that I had no contact with whatsoever until I got a phone call from Patty Crow and said, well, we drafted you in the 9th round. We'll see you in August. And that was all the conversation that I had with anybody.
Really? So they didn't have you in for a workout or none of that?
No, not at all. And so I mean, it's sometimes it's just being lucky. Sometimes it's being lucky and being good enough to get your foot in the door, and it's what you do once you get your foot in the door that matters. I came around at the right time.
As a 9th round pick, and you said you weren't thrilled about that, did you have a chip on your shoulder? I mean, were you expecting to go earlier? Had other teams talked to you and you thought, there's a pretty good chance I could go, higher in the draft than some teams that you thought might have had some specific interest?
Well, potentially, and I went to the Jets, and I went I had some workouts. We didn't have a combine back then.
Right.
And, once you got done with the All-Star games, you were done until the draft. As far as any contact with the teams and so, it was a crapshoot for me. I sat around all day on a Saturday and didn't get drafted, and sat around most of the day on a Sunday, and finally got the phone call from Patty Crow, and
were you beginning to think you weren't going to get drafted when it got that late? Did you just say, heavens to Murgatroyd, I might not get a job?
Well, I felt like I had a good enough career in college that I'm going to get an opportunity. But, even like today's football, I mean, some of these players out here that don't get drafted from a compensation standpoint are getting paid more than the 7th round pick or the 6th round pick, or so it's like I said, I played in the right era. I played for the right people, and it worked out that way.
Go ahead.
That's okay. I was going to say, you've been the director of scouting, college scouting. You were for 17, 18 years with the Vikings, and you've seen all sorts of players and different schemes and everything else. When you look at Brian Flores' defense, and you also look at maybe I'm saying the position you play, because it wasn't a classic middle linebacker anymore. When you watch Jonathan Grenard, when you look at a Blake Cashman, and you see the scheme that the Vikings are running, what comes to mind? Because is it the players, is it the schemes, is it the combination? Because the Vikings seem to be exceedingly high on this defense right now.
Well, Brian's kind of a mad scientist, and they've got all. I mean, I would assume that it's a fairly difficult defense to learn as a young player. They've got a lot of moving parts. They've got, he loves to get pressure on the quarterback like everybody does. And I've become good friends with Brian, and our grandson, or his son, and my grandson play on the same in the football league. So it's nice to be able to see him come out and watch a practice when they're in training camp. So he's hopefully somewhere down the line he's going to get another chance. I think he certainly
head coaching chance
more than deserves it. But I think he's content here. I think he enjoys. I think he loves playing for Kevin, or playing with Kevin, or coaching with Kevin, and I don't think he's not a self-promoter. But he's done a remarkable job here, and I think will continue to do so. And, I think the defenses, as they always are typically ahead of the offenses this time of year, and that'll balance out. But I'm excited about the future of this team.
How about college game? Illinois, right? You went to Illinois.
Yep.
You go Fighting Illini? You still pay real close attention to the program? I bet you do.
To a certain extent. Bielema is a good friend of mine.
Okay.
And I've known Brett for a long, long time, and so I follow him. I try and get down to a game every year. Last year I was honorary captain, and they got beat by the Gophers, so I don't think I'll do that again. But
you won't be invited back.
But the games with all the nil stuff, and it's gotten.
Do you like the nil stuff? Do you think players should get compensated because of the money they generate for the NC?
To a certain extent, yeah. But if they're on scholarship, they're getting their school paid for.
Yep.
They're getting, and I get it, but that's a lot of money that people are forking out, and the rich get richer, and it's not an even playing field for a lot of these teams. So, and it's hard to, you preach loyalty and you preach commitment and this, that, and the other, and guys are swapping teams every year, and coaches are swapping teams every year, and they're all chasing the money.
Right.
And you can't blame them for it.
No, you can't blame the kids, because a lot of them might not get that big pro contract. And if all of a sudden some coach says, "We'll pay $800,000 to play hoops at Maryland," you're going to take the money?
Sure. And a lot of those guys they're not equipped to handle that kind of money, and so. There's a lot of sad stories going around with not only the collegiate game but the professional game as well, and it's tragic when those things come up.
I know you're not too far from the game, because I see you every Sunday at U.S. Bank when the Vikings are playing there. But retirement is treating you well. You got your health. got a great family. I mean, it's. I know a lot of your contemporaries. It's a very difficult road right now, so feel pretty fortunate about all that.
I really do, and I was in it long enough. I mean, 42 years with the same organization, and it's a dream come true for me. It's helped our family, other than the fact that my wife was a single parent for years and years and years and years, being on the road 220, 25 nights a year, and so it was hard from that perspective. I wish I would have helped with the raising of our kids more so.
There are sacrifices you make.
For
different professions have different sacrifices.
Yeah, they do, and it's they've all turned out pretty well, so I'm happy about that, and everybody's still here, and some of them are still on scholarship a little bit, but I understand.
We all know that bit.
I think that's a universal problem.
Yes, it is.
Being a parent, and you know what? I'm just happy that they're here.
Was it important for you to be, is it a sense of pride for you to be with one organization for that long? A lot of guys bounce around, especially in the day of free agency, play for 4, 5, 6, half a dozen different teams, and you were with the same organization for 42 years?
Well, they really didn't have free agency when I was playing. Plan B was the first time that there was player movement, and actually I think I made my first Pro Bowl after the 10th or 11th year, and was in Hawaii, and somebody asked me that question, and it was just I wouldn't have gone anywhere else. I didn't want to go play regardless of the money, and quite honestly, I wasn't that impactful as a football player to garner that kind of contract, and which really didn't exist back then. But I was a Viking. I was content to be here. I wanted to stay here. I was lucky to be able to work in the front office for 28 years, I think it was, or something like that. But it's I've had a very blessed career.
One last question for you, because I got about a minute or so to go. Favorite Jim Marshall moment? Do you have an anecdote at all that you can share?
That's a lot of them.
Well, there's a lot of stories about Jim, and I'll keep some of them to myself, and they weren't off the field, and it wasn't. He was just unique. He was just a unique character, and he was. I mean, at the time he was probably 38 years old when I was 22 maybe, and we didn't run in the same circles.
Sure.
And I had my own little
posse
cast of characters,
right.
But he was Mr. Viking.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the hallmark of this organization, as was Bud. And those are the two. And I know we've had great players around here that have come through here, but the names that I always remember and refer to are Bud Grant and Jim Marshall.
Yeah. I think for a lot of the old timers like Rosey and I, it is a unique, and you could throw in one or two others, but there's a core, and that was it. No question.
He's the forever captain, and they're going to honor him with wearing his decal, the number 70 on their helmets all year, and there'll be a special Legends weekend I know coming up as well. But it's great, Scott, that you were here today to honor him with the first time that his widow Sue's had a chance to come here and kind of revisit the place that has meant so much to everybody in the Vikings organization, remembering Jim Marshall.
Yep.
Thanks, Scotty.
Thanks for sharing your time with us, Woods. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by.
Great to see you guys.
You bet. Good to see you again. That's Scott Studwell, former Minnesota, long time Minnesota Viking linebacker. That'll take care of it today. Teneby, thanks for having me.
Hey, great job.
You as well. Thanks, Rosie. Good to see you again.
Yeah, enjoy your vacation.
Yep, well, I'm out next week on vacation. Of course, Teneby and I will be back tomorrow in studio. Teneby, program password. Do we have one on deck?
Brian Oak and Audra Martin.
Ooh. Well, with Oak, as long as you had Oak, couldn't you have gotten Cesario, too?
I don't know if he was being invited back.
Yeah, that's probably right. Thanks for having me. Oh, I said that already.
Yeah, great job.
We're back at 12 noon tomorrow, back at 1600 Utica Avenue South. Big ticket, JG next, live from Winter Park here on The Fan.
Good night, folks. And good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.
Ice Cube's Big 3 is the surprise hit of the summer. This Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern on CBS with playoff elimination on the line. The most physical, fiercest, and competitive basketball in the world. Miami's Michael Beasley and Lance Stevenson must win to make the playoffs. And breakout star Dwight Howard of the LA Riot will battle Gary Payton's Boston squad in a do-or-die match for both teams. 6 teams are alive for 4 spots and all must win. There's no crying in the Big 3. And the no-holds-barred action starts Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Presented by iHeart.